I'm Dr. Ash, and I'm one of the GP fellows working with the Wellbeing programme across the county. This is for our pharmacy team, optometry team, and for general practice. As part of that, we are also speaking to inspirational people and their stories. These are a planned series of talks with people across the county, not necessarily clinical people. So a lot of interesting conversation and information being shared with all. And hopefully this inspires others and encourages tips and things that maybe you can do at work or in your workspace, and even personally at home. Today we have Dr. Naren Nathan. He's a GP in Chesterfield. He's a GP trainer and the training program director for Chesterfield. He's also a mentor, mentoring with the GP task force with the GPS and the new to program. So we're going to start off with, so I came across via your podcast with Rachel Morris. So for those who don't know, Naren did a podcast with Rachel Morris titled "You Are Not." Her podcast is called "You're Not a Frog." Definitely worth having a look. And it really touched on well-being, and it really resonated with our project that we're doing. So for those who don't know you, please tell us about yourself and your background and how you got involved in sort of well-being.
No, thanks for that introduction, Aaron. I suppose I got involved with the podcast through well, first of all, just listening to You Are Not a Frog and other podcasts as well. It's something I got into during lockdown. Podcast was something I was recommended by a colleague. And I suppose the You Are Not a Frog podcast tend to focus on I suppose work and work-related issues as well. And it was just through Twitter I got in touch with, it was through a friend, work colleague, and got in touch with Rachel, and I said, look, I'm quite interested speaking about mental health and how it can affect from men's perspective as well. Something that I try to advocate with myself, with colleagues, with family as well. It was a pleasure to join her and talk about all things men's mental health, so to speak.
Yeah, and how would you say you got involved into mental health and well-being? Did you do any particular courses or training? How did this come about being an interest for you generally?
Yeah, I think obviously with with the pandemic, it highlighted or put under microscope the issue of well-being and mental health. And I suppose each and every one of us will go through a form of, some form of mental health issue during our lifetime. And I suppose, during the stressful times of, say, growing up or, for example, university, it was put under a microscope personally for me. I suppose I wanted to raise the awareness, especially among men, to speak up about issues. I know that more and more in, I suppose, social media and general media and television, etc., that is being publicized. But we still lose a lot of men to, adverse issues such as suicide, which is such a shame. And, I think one of the first things I say to a patient, if they may, well, anyone really, especially men and blokes, is, well done, just taking that first step to asking and reaching out for help. I think there's still this taboo among, especially men, to talk about mental health and, reach out for help. So it's a bit of personal experience, but also wanting to share the experience, but also to share that it's okay to have, to be vulnerable. It's one of the big things I spoke about in the podcast, is it's okay to be vulnerable and seek that help.
Yeah. No, definitely. And with your work, not just patients, but have you ever encountered, do you feel that men are not as forthcoming in general practice? And have you come across any ways which maybe we can promote specific to men? Because yes, it is
Yeah,
an area where we find it's not maybe
yeah,
spoken about.
yeah.
I do feel things are changing, but
Yes. Yeah.
slowly. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, I suppose, in clinical practice, you do have, I think before COVID, I know locally in Chesterfield, we had, so, kind of self-help groups of men who, with various medical conditions, be it mental health or people with, say, cancer diagnoses, who can go to, say, a football stadium and talk about their
Mm.
issues with other men, so they know they're not on their own. I'm not sure what happened during COVID. I know a lot of services were taken away or was stopped or postponed. And it's directing men to the fact that you can self-refer to certain, IAPT, certain mental health services such as IAPT, for example. I suppose in Derbyshire it would be Talking Mental Health Derbyshire, etc. But also, I think I suppose at a practice level, we tend to have a Facebook site where we can advertise to our practice population that there are these mental health support links available. So, they may not feel comfortable speaking to a GP or a clinician or a healthcare
Mm.
professional, but they can just seek that self-referral through the mediums, really.
Yeah, no, that definitely, that's brilliant. And then for clinicians themselves, I know you work as a mentor. Um,
Yeah,
tell us tell us a bit more about that service, how you involved, or an
yeah,
example of what would happen with someone who approached, say, a
yeah.
colleague and who it's for.
Of course, yeah. And I think going back to personal experience, Aram, I actually I went through the GPS mentor scheme myself as a mentee.
Okay.
So I've seen it from the other side, and I've seen the amazing benefits mentoring can have on the
Yeah.
individual, and how you
Mm.
can actually, work out a problem and actually survive and actually thrive at the end of it.
Yeah.
And so I just thought, actually, I want to give something back. This seems like
Mm.
something I really enjoy doing. And so I joined the GPS scheme and as a mentor. And it's great to work with individuals who are, I suppose, struggling in their career, but also in their other, we forget that we have, as medics, sometimes we have lives outside of work, and it's very difficult to sometimes put a partition between the two of them. So it's like a vicious cycle. If home life isn't so good, what can affect work,
Mm.
and vice versa. So it's nice to be kind of giving that support for mentees to work out their issues and help them move forward. And I suppose, um, within, as clinicians, sometimes there's a limit to what we can. Sometimes there is a limit, so we have to direct individuals to, say, their own GP to seek that support
Mm.
for their mental health. Or, there's an amazing organisation called NHS Practitioner Health,
Mm.
that clinicians can refer themselves to.
Yeah.
Um,
And your reason for getting involved with it, was it because of your previous experience with it?
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Okay, okay. And what about within your practice for your, the employees, the staff there?
yeah,
So someone who promotes mental health, have you done anything
yeah,
in your practice to sort of encourage, promote, provide? Is there anything you've done or helped with,
yeah,
or the practice may have done to help with the staff?
yeah. I think I count myself very lucky to work in the practice I work at, and the people I work with, in terms of, we've all kind of sort of created and harbored a
Mm.
culture of being supportive
Mm.
to each other. I'm not saying other practices don't do that, but from my point of view, in my practice, that we have, I feel I can talk to most people about issues. I have lots of close people I can talk to about issues, about home life at work, for
Mm.
example, and what I find is that actually, going back to my issue about topic of being vulnerable, is actually when you open up to people, actually, if you do let your guard down for a bit, you actually make more meaningful connections with others. You form those relationships, and actually work becomes a lot easier, even through the stressful times. You adopt that policy with other people, so you can tell when something's a wee bit off the longer you work with someone. You knock on the door, you go and have a private chat, you go for a walk, you have a coffee or whatever. And I think a little bit of a conversation with people about asking them, how are you? And then asking them again, actually, how are you?
Yeah.
Because the first time it's more of a knee-jerk reaction. Oh yeah, I'm fine. But the second time you ask it, how are you? That you're more likely to get a genuine response. So it's more just harboring a culture, really, of being supportive, being open to one another. Not so much any formal training. It's just being human to each other, really.
Yeah, no, definitely. It has definitely been hard for everyone. I mean, that's the understatement of for the last 2 years, I would but definitely I've noticed, where we would have big meetings once a week, that sort of check-in that maybe I would do with people that I don't see every day, isn't really there anymore. So no, and I think that's across a lot of business places, and the way staff are with one another. Are there any timeout sessions or anything like that, or even during the COVID, the lockdown, where you weren't really allowed to walk in? I mean, I think it's fine now, but we're very much even more restricted to your room, and you felt you couldn't just knock and say, let's all have lunch together. We still had to be spaced out.
Actually, we did something quite, we've carried on doing it actually. When the pandemic first hit, obviously, it was very kind of social distancing, etc., etc. It still is now. But we have, there's a car park outside the building, and what we used to do in the morning was we used to have a morning huddle. So, how many GPs there were, staff members. What we used to do was just talk, catch up for the day before. How's things? What did you do last night? How was your weekend? Or if someone's been on leave, how was your holiday? Etc. Whatever. But initially we used to do kind of stretches. So kind of, and there was one registrar, a trainee who was into martial arts. So he would teach us a form of Tai Chi.
Wow.
So it was interesting. And at a point, in summer when it was baking hot, I think it was 2020, we used to sit outside on the grass or on kind of the path. And we used to have our lunch together outside. So kind of it was well-being because you were outside in nature. It was sunny and you were with people and you were having a laugh. So it was amazing.
Such a simple thing. It's such a simple. And would you say you're still doing the stretches?
Yeah. We're not doing the stretches anymore because it's been absolutely freezing. But and the wind, whatever. But we still get what we call a morning huddle, and we still have a post morning surgery huddle. So after morning surgery, before lunch, before visits, and so on. So it's just a chance to catch up, especially for the registrars, the trainees who've maybe not seen many people in the morning, and just to stretch your legs. I mean, I personally make it a point to drink plenty of water to the point where I have to get up to use the toilet. And so it gets me up every 15 minutes. And I shouldn't be saying this, but I will say it anyway, Aaron. So recently we've got some wireless headphones for consulting. So what I can do is walk up and down my room. So while I'm talking to the patient, so getting my steps in, or doing squats. So I have been known to do squats during a consultation. So anything just to improve your mobility and activity, really.
Keep moving. I mean, those are brilliant ideas, and it doesn't really cost much, you know, the meeting together before and after.
Yeah,
Almost like
absolutely.
a debrief, someone touching in with you, asking you, "Is everything okay?"
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
And I make it a point that when I'm in surgery, that if I'm having a lot, when I've got time for lunch, whether it be 10, 15, 20 minutes,
mm,
just get everyone up to the meeting room upstairs. If it's a cold day, come on, let's just go upstairs. Let's just have 20 minutes together.
mm,
Let's just have our food together. Because sometimes especially GPs and registrars can get sucked into, oh gosh, I need to do my tasks, I need to do my
yeah,
work, when
yeah,
actually you become less effective. It's not
yeah.
good to anyone. So
Yeah. So coming on to trainees and your role
yeah,
as a training program director, I myself CCT'd, which means completed my GP training for
yeah,
those who are not GPs, in 2020. And when I left, I felt I was great, I was ready to go.
yeah,
And then within my first 6 months of the role as a GP, it really did hit me that I've never really been given any resilience training or how to deal, you know, sort of any well-being or,
yeah,
you know, look after yourself. And I'm just starting. Is that something, because of your well-being mental health background? Is that something you see that is included in Chesterfield? Is a plan, or how do you instill that in the
yeah.
younger generation?
I think, yeah, another great question, Aram. So I think when the pandemic first hit, it was initially face-to-face teaching. So
Yeah.
there was that opportunity for
Mm.
registrars and educators to meet informally over a coffee or a tea, whatever, and iron out those kind of queries that they may have. And I feel my heart does go out to some registrars because they faced a lot of difficulties getting into GP training. So usually international graduates who've had visa issues,
Mm.
and then unfortunately it was affected because of entry due to the UK because of COVID. And I think what we're trying to, hopefully with the restrictions easing, we're trying to get more and more face-to-face teaching. But when it was the height of the pandemic, it wasn't ideal. We would offer ourselves as TPDs for them to get in touch with us if there's any issues. And we tried to incorporate things like walks into the teaching sessions on a Wednesday.
Okay.
Instead of having actual Zoom or virtual teaching, we would ask them to split into small groups of no more than 6, so COVID secure, and ask them, so whether they live in Sheffield or Chesterfield or Derby, to get
Right.
into groups of 6 and go to a park or an outside space and walk. We even had a lady called Helen Garr, who's provided some resilience and wellbeing training
Okay.
a couple of years ago. And then what we plan to do next year for the final years is have a session maybe on mental well-being specifically, and teaching a positive mindset,
Yeah.
preparing for the RCA and
Yeah.
the AKT exams.
Yeah.
Um, and more recently, we've had a chance to do something called one-to-ones with all our trainees, and just touch. Sometimes some of them are too fearful to get
Mm.
in touch.
Mm.
So it's been an opportunity just to say, look, we want to have this chat, but it's
Mm.
opened up a lot of issues that we weren't aware of. So
Yeah.
it's good to be able to help them with that, really.
Mm. And then, like, that's brilliant. That's lovely to hear that things are being done, and I feel younger generations maybe are a bit more in tune, or it's mental health generally and well-being and taking time of you out for yourself is promoted.
Yeah.
There is maybe a bit more of
And
a
it's interesting because one of the things we talk about in this one-to-one is their well-being score. And of course, we know with our own
okay.
with our own appraisals that, for example, on 14 Fish appraisal on the platform, is one of the questions is, what's your well-being score based on the questionnaire? So
Okay.
we ask the same things of our registrars in this one-to-one. And I found that actually when you reciprocate, when you be vulnerable and you be open with registrars
Yeah.
about some of the issues that you face as a registrar, they feel a lot more confident, comfortable talking to you about their issues, perhaps.
Is there a way of someone to to show that they are open to listening or to allow to someone. Is there any tips you'd give to someone to, I'm talking as a GP
Mm.
partner myself, and you know, if an employee comes to me, my personal thing is I like to do a walk around the building,
Yeah, yeah,
and it's a hello, how are you, how are things, know people
mm,
on first name terms basis, ask
yeah.
about pets,
Fantastic.
children, things
Yeah,
like that. And it's just a visible, I'm here, you can have a chat. Um, is there anything else somebody can do to show that, you know, look, you can come and talk to me, or I'm
yeah, yeah.
okay to, I'm here to listen to you. Is that
I think that's very good start, Aaron. You know, getting to know someone by their first name, getting to know a little bit about their, I suppose, their social history, what they do on the weekend, what are their hobbies, and maybe getting them outside of the practice and going for a walk.
yeah,
Perhaps, you know,
yeah,
sometimes their mindset just changes when they're outside the building they work in, and I think um, as I said earlier on, asking those two questions, how are you, but actually, how are you type of thing,
yeah, yeah,
again.
yeah.
And I'm checking in with them not just once, but maybe a week or two later, actually, you know, how are
Mm,
things going?
mm,
Um, and I think, as you say, just being open with them and saying, look, come
mm.
talk to me if there are issues.
No, that's
Yeah,
brilliant. That's lovely to hear that things, you
yeah,
know, the advice that you're saying, and everything that you're saying that's been happening and you're doing,
yeah,
not just for you know, where you're working currently, but other clinicians that need help via GP
yeah, yeah,
and future
absolutely.
generation trainees,
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
and any, it's coming up to an end to this, any self-care tips so that you may have that you could share, you
yeah.
feel in your experience have been brilliant, anything like that that you'd say that somebody could take away and practice, or you did something and it had such an you know, amazing effect, and the outcomes were really good
Yeah,
for yourself, or you know of someone.
yeah, yeah. I think I think for me is finding that tribe of people that you trust at work, really, because you spend a heck of a lot of time at work. So if you can get on with people
Mm,
at
yeah,
work, you can trust them and have those meaningful conversations with them. That makes life a lot easier. But also things that you can be doing is, you know, for example, drinking enough fluids, drinking enough water during the day,
mm,
keeping yourself hydrated, trying to reduce your caffeine intake, and doing, if you know, for example, the days you are working, trying to get enough steps. Not saying do 10,000 steps, but just get up and about
mm,
and keep yourself active by just doing exercise. It's
mm,
underrated sometimes. I know
yes,
sometimes some of us say we can't find time, but I think it's so important to find the time
yeah,
and leave work at work. Don't try to do work at home.
yeah,
Setting those boundaries, and I mean, those are just kind of some simple things I live by,
things,
really,
yeah,
which has
yeah.
helped. Yeah,
No, ditto. I'm exactly the same. I
yeah,
really like the idea of moving whilst you're at work.
consulting.
And yeah,
Yeah,
especially when you're concerned. I know
yeah,
of people looking into sort of portable treadmills that you can keep
yeah,
your
yeah.
desk.
Or even standing desks as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
Was a trend.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, definitely. So, thank you